My introduction to Lost Media is a pretty classic story. I've told it before, but I'll tell it here because it's a good one. So, back in 2015, I was randomly browsing YouTube, and a video showed up called Top 40 Lost or Banned Episodes from Kids Cartoons. And I didn't know what that meant. I recognized the characters in the thumbnail. It was like Jimmy Neutron and a bunch of stuff I had watched growing up, but I didn't know what that lost or banned meant. I had never thought about that in relation to cartoons or any form of entertainment, really. So I clicked the video and I started watching it, and the way it was explained, the stuff you grew up watching or the stuff that you think you know, there's another side to it. The content that you can't watch anymore because it's either wasn't archived well or there were no DVD releases, or in the case of things being banned, they were once available but they were taken off of TV, or they were kind of hidden away, not intended to be watched again. And I had just never thought about that in terms of the shows I watched growing up. So it was really eye-opening to me to realize that there's this whole other side to the content that I had seen that I never even thought about before having watched that video. My discovery of the Lost Media Wiki and how I started searching for Lost Media kind of go hand in hand with the video that I watched, the top 40 banned kid stuff from Blame It on Jorge. So there was a segment in that video that really stuck out to me more than anything else, and it was about Kablam episode 29. So Kablam is it's a Nickelodeon variety show of animation. It showcased a bunch of different segments and shorts, and it was really popular in like the mid to late 90s. And there was a segment in that video about lost content, about an episode of Kablam that people didn't know if it existed or not. It's called episode 29, and the story behind it is that it was supposed to act as a series finale for the show, but the show was so successful that they cut the episode from airing and continued the show for another couple seasons. And because it was cut from airing and was never shown on TV, people were kind of debating whether or not such an episode even existed in the first place, or if the whole thing was just a big hoax. There was like no proof that it did or did not exist, and that was so... Out of all the other pieces of Lost Media discussed in that video, that was the one that kind of stuck out to me the most, because how can people not know if something existed? Again, it kind of goes along with that idea that I had never even considered stuff being lost before, but how could people not even know if something existed or not? It seems so strange to me. So that was actually the first Lost Media topic that I even got into, and that's really what got me into the community, was researching Kablam episode 29 to determine whether or not it actually existed. And that sent me down so many different rabbit holes. I talked to so many different Kablam fans, so many different people from the Lost Media community in those early days of the community. And that really kind of got me interested in not only looking further into Kablam, but other related topics to it, like, Nickelodeon stuff and Cartoon Network stuff, and eventually that kind of grew to video games and other things. But yeah, it kind of all started with Kablam from that video. Interestingly though, because the community was so small at the time, there actually weren't a whole lot of like searches that were going on like we see today. I actually remember this was back during the days when the Lost Media Wiki was still on the .wikia portion of its existence, so it hadn't moved to its own website yet. And a lot of the searches were kind of relegated to comment sections in the articles. It was really small at the time. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of people even in the community searching for stuff. So if you found kind of like a topic that was more obscure that didn't have as many people following the search, it kind of was you on your own. I searched for Kablam by myself for the majority of the time I spent looking for it. And I did talk to people that were involved with the Kablam community and who knew some stuff about old Nicktoons and stuff. But for the most part, it was me alone. And a lot of the searches, like I said, unless it was a relatively big or popular topic at the time, didn't even really have that many people searching for it because the searches were so small and the community was so small. As the community grew, this did lead to more people like finding out about the Wikia version of the site and other things like that. And you would see search efforts grow even further. Like, after a while, I remember we had moved from the Wikia site to the forums. This was kind of like a weird time during the transition between the old website and the new website. A lot of people didn't want to go to the new website, but a lot of searches were taking place in the forums of the new site because it was so much better than a comment section. So when we moved to the forums before we officially adopted the new site in its entirety, that's also where a lot of searches kind of picked up steam, like they did with SpongeBob search, and even smaller searches too, because like you could see very clearly, oh, this is a thread that talks about this, and you could just click whatever you were most interested in without having to browse articles and look in the comment section to see where the progress was. And sometimes the comments were full of trolls or spam, or they just weren't really organized well, but the forums really changed that with the evolution of searches. So my origin story as a content creator dates way, way earlier than the Lost Media Wiki or any of my involvement with Lost Media. It was back in 2009, and it actually started because of a rivalry with my friends. So I was back in middle school, and I had a couple friends, and one of them was really into like animations, and he did a lot of they were really simple animations, but at the time they were really cool. And he would show our friend group and be like, "Look what I made, and it's on YouTube, and you can watch it, and it has 50 views or whatever." And I was actually a little jealous of that. I kind of, I was an artist at the time. I was doing a lot of art too, and I kind of thought well, if he can do that and get 50 views, why can't I do that and get 100 views? Why can't I be a better artist than he is? And I was actually thinking about it in terms of art at the time, and not even so much like YouTube. But he had a YouTube, so I said I have to make a YouTube. I have to compete on the same platform. So I made my account in 2009. And I posted my first video, which was a slideshow, I guess, of my sculptures. I used to do a lot of video game art and video game sculptures. So my first video series was called Video Game Clay Figure Models, and it's still up. You can watch it today. There's, I think, maybe 12 episodes in the series. And that's kind of where it all started. And at that point, those videos got so popular, I had branched out to, well, at the time, so popular, it's all relative now, but I had branched out to animations. I showed some of my collectibles and stuff, and that's kind of where I gained ground as a YouTuber. It was in those early years of me doing art. I think I was doing it from about 2009 to 2013 was my period of art, and it was that early fan base that really stuck me into okay, I'm going to do YouTube. I'm going to be a content creator now. But it all started from that early rivalry with my friend because I wanted to be a better YouTuber than him, and it's kind of funny that all these years later, he doesn't really do YouTube anymore, but it's funny that it started there and now it's still going for me. And if you go to my channel, actually, little trivia fun fact, if you go to my channel and look at the recommended channels in the sidebar, that first channel that's there, that is my friend from back in the day, the one I was competing with. At a certain point, we had kind of a truce. We're okay, you promote my channel, I'll promote your channel. And I said, okay, and we did that. And that's been there since probably the early 2010s. I never took it off because it's historic now. But the name is kind of an interesting thing too. I get asked that a lot actually, where does LSuperSonicQ come from? And this is kind of a cool origin story too. So back when I was deciding what my YouTube name was going to be, I wanted to pick something that meant something. I didn't want to just pick, Sonic the Hedgehog 27. I wanted something really cool and unique. So I thought, what names are special to me? And at the time, there was one name that I thought of, and it was Supersonic. Now, Supersonic, yes, it is a reference to the Sonic character, but it actually originates from a laser tag arena that used to be around near us. It actually closed down a few years ago, so you can't go there anymore. But back when it was operating in the late 2000s and early 2010s, it was called Laser Quest. And when I went there to play laser tag, I was obviously competitive. I wanted to beat all my friends. And it took me a while to get good at the game. But once I got really good, they had leaderboards, and I finally hit rank 1 when my code name was Supersonic, because you played the game with a little username, and I picked Supersonic on the time that I had gotten first place for the first time. And from that point on, every time I went to Laser Quest, I always played as Supersonic because it meant something to me. So when it was time to pick my YouTube name back in those days, I said, well, Supersonic means a lot to me because it comes from, the laser tag arena. So I said, Supersonic is a good YouTube name, but I wanted something that was a little more different than just Supersonic, because at that point, it's basically Sonic the Hedgehog 27, I wanted something that was more stand out. So I was thinking well, the name comes from Laser Quest, so maybe I can incorporate Laser Quest somewhere in it. I thought Laser Quest Supersonic, Supersonic Laser Quest, but they didn't really roll off the tongue, so I thought, Laser Quest actually abbreviated themselves as LQ. So I thought, what if I take the LQ from Laser Quest and combine it with Supersonic, Laser Quest Supersonic, just in a way where most people wouldn't really, know, oh, that's from Laser Quest. So I broke up the L and the Q, LSuperSonicQ, and it rolled off the tongue. I said, that's it. That's perfect. And from that day forward, my name has always been LSuperSonicQ on YouTube. That's where it came from, was those days playing laser tag with my friends when I hit rank 1 as Supersonic. So I didn't realize, or it took me a long time to realize, that I was going to become one of the faces of lost media, I guess, of the community. I think it was probably back in, I think it was 2017 was probably the year that my channel saw the most growth, and because I was posting lost media videos, that's how it all happened. Is I was posting lost media videos, my channel was growing so much, people said, "Well, you're a lost media YouTuber, you're a big name in the community." And yeah, it was 2017, which was the era of like the Kappa Mikey MTV pilot, JBVO, Meso Blues pilot, even I think the Three Men pilot that doesn't exist, but that was I think a search that was happening at that time. Those videos in particular got really, really popular at the time. And there wasn't like a lot of people making lost media videos back in 2016, 2017. It was still pretty underground for the most part. But my videos in particular, whether or not they were about cartoons or they were just, people were just discovering lost media more naturally at the time, they really, really gained a lot of attention. And at the time, my channel wasn't even that big. I started my channel in 2009, and I hit 1,000 subscribers, I think, in summer of 2016. Yeah, it took a long time to hit 1,000 subscribers, so it's not even like my channel was really big and I decided to get into lost media. My channel kind of got big because of lost media, and it was around that 2016, 2017 period where I saw like a lot of growth, and I kept posting videos, people kept watching them, and I think kind of naturally through that, people kind of adopted, I guess, my channel as like a main face of lost media, which is pretty cool. I wasn't the only one making YouTube videos about lost media, like I said, though. There were other channels, like Blame It on Jorge was doing a lot of like top 40 or 20 lists at the time. There was ShroomTube too. I think he even came before me, and he was doing videos. I remember like Cartoon Catastrophe. I believe he was another early lost media YouTuber, but Bedhead Bernie as well. So there was like a group of them that was making lost media content. I think it was just whether or not it was the topics I covered or the way I covered them. I think maybe a lot of it, if you ask me, I think maybe a lot of it was the way I covered them, because a lot of people up to that point were just making videos that kind of talked about the topics. They weren't really searching for them. But the difference with my videos and what I really tried to do back in those days to stand out was to make videos that talked about search efforts and talked about my journey to getting the piece of lost media found or whatever I could uncover. I wanted to bring something new to the table. That was always my goal back then with those videos. And if you watch like the ones I mentioned, the Kappa Mikey MTV pilot and the Three Men pilot search, those videos really did a good job of doing that. And I think that really helped me stand out from the rest. Not only that, but a lot, maybe nowadays we've gone back to the spooky lost media kind of vibe. But back in those days, the spooky lost media vibe was the majority of what content was being made. So I also went out of my way to make things not spooky, not scary, because I didn't really see the need to make a lost cartoon pilot spooky, right? I wanted it to be more like a fun journey down the rabbit hole to see what we could uncover, rather than like, oh, here's a scary, spooky pilot that you've never seen, and because you've never seen it, that makes it immediately spooky. Like, no, I wanted it to be more involved and more fun and more, like, I guess the kind of stuff you'd see on, like, Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. I wanted that to be, like, the vibe. Okay, so this question kind of gets into, like, YouTube stuff that kind of goes beyond the lost media community. But I think just like with anything, there is a upside and a downside to it. I think, to give a couple examples of those, the upside to having such a big channel and being the face of lost media is you can kind of bring more awareness to searches and get people to look for things that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been popular. I've seen that a lot, especially on the forums, because I love going to the Lost Media Wiki forums and just browsing all the new threads. You can find so many cool things in the forums that you wouldn't have found otherwise. And a lot of times I'll go to the forums to just browse the forums, and there'll be really interesting topics that get discussed and brought up. But the threads themselves don't really have a lot of attention, or there's not a lot of interest in them. So I'll think to myself, well, why don't I cover this in a video? It might raise some awareness to the search and get some more people involved. And a lot of times that's happened. I've brought forum topics into my videos, and we've had searches that kind of really begin, all because I mentioned them in my videos. Not only that, but also you can kind of bring more awareness, not even so much just to search for something, but just more awareness that something even exists. Like, there have been a lot of times where I've made videos talking about a specific topic, and someone will come forward with information about that. An example that I'm thinking of off the top of my head right now is the Batman Fights Dracula Lost Filipino movie. That's kind of a more popular international topic nowadays than it was before I made my video on it, but I've done a couple of videos on it. And no one had been talking about it at the time, and I was kind of surprised that no one had talked about it. So I made a video, I think maybe a couple years ago at this point, that discussed it. And basically the search is, the movie is from a long time ago, 1967, I believe. And there's a lot of speculation that it's lost forever because the Philippines just didn't have great archives of their movies back then. And so many people involved with the movie are either just not able to be reached, or they've passed away, or any amount of circumstances. But after I made that video, someone reached out to me, and they said that their grandfather was actually the director of the movie, which is crazy because, like, I guess you could have maybe found them on your own, but how hard would it have been to track down, like, the granddaughter of the director of the movie on your own, you know? Especially, we're talking about, like, international lost media here, so there could be language barriers and social media barriers and stuff. So she reached out to me and said that, and said that when she goes back to the Philippines, she was actually going to look through some archives and through some other places to see if she could find a copy. And it's examples like that that make it really, really cool to be able to do lost media videos and get so many eyes on searches, because you can get new leads like that, or pieces found entirely that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. Now, the downside to that, though, because there is a downside, like I said, is that sometimes with so many eyes on your content, it does get a little tricky with kind of what you show in the video and what you say, and kind of what leads you pursue as well. So just a few examples of that. Basically, I guess to put it straightforward, back in my earlier days of doing YouTube, I would very rarely censor, like, names or anything. Oh, I would censor last names and, like, private information I would censor, but usually I would, either leave, like, first names or, like, what company that people worked for, right? Because at the time there was really no problem with it, and it just kind of told the story of the video better, rather than just, like, blanking everything out so you can't really see what's going on. But as my channel grew and as more people get into lost media, I just censor everything now, because I'm really, really afraid of people that we're trying to contact either getting, like, spammed with emails from a bunch of people trying to reach them about the same thing, or people that I've already mentioned in a video, like, they don't have content. People will still contact them, even if I say, we've already reached them, they have nothing. Like, people will still, email them asking for stuff, even though I've already said in the video that they have nothing. And it's things like that that I think YouTubers, as well as the community in general, kind of has to keep a better watch on, is making sure that we, like, protect the people that we're trying to contact, not only for their own sanity, but also because if we're trying to contact someone related to a search and they get spammed with 50 messages before, like, we can get a hold of them, they're not going to help us out, and that's a potential lead that just goes away because they're not going to help us now because they were spammed with messages. And this is kind of related to that, but it's not quite the same thing. Recently, I guess, it's always been an issue in the community, but I think nowadays it's a little easier to kind of pull off, and I see it more often. You see a lot of people kind of creating fake leads or, wild goose chases that don't really lead anywhere. Just for example, for a relevant example, the search for Slamfest 99, it's a lost live stream that Nintendo hosted. It was broadcast over the internet back in 1999, and we're trying to find a copy of the stream. And that search has been going on for 2 years. In the span of those 2 years, we've actually come across a lot of people with fake leads that claim they've seen it on some website that never existed, or they had a copy that never existed, or they know someone that has it, or contact this person because he has it. And a lot of that stuff is just, it's hoax stuff, it's fake stuff, it's not based on any fact. But because it's easy for people to make that kind of thing up, And if they know, well, LSuperSonicQ is gonna cover it in a video. I'm gonna try and like be in this video or throw them off to add more suspense to the video. Like people will kind of take advantage of that. So that's something else that you kind of have to be careful about, is to like not really give obvious trolls attention and stuff, and also just making sure that like you don't fall for it, because it can detract a lot of attention and time from the search. And like I said, that's kind of existed in the community for years, but I think now with lost media being so popular and like our channel is getting bigger, it's more important to like keep that in mind. I think when I really consider whether or not I'm a filmmaker or a lost media enthusiast, I would say probably a filmmaker, simply because that goes back to the YouTube roots. And I think throughout my entirety of YouTube, whether it was the art content or the lost media content, I still see myself as a YouTuber. Yes, I'm very involved in the lost media community, and I love the lost media community, and I make lost media videos on YouTube, but none of that would have happened if it wasn't for the YouTube side coming first. Like, I think there's a pretty high chance if I had just stuck with art on YouTube and just discovered lost media and not done anything with the content, which very well could have happened. I could have just discovered the Kablam topics and the Nickelodeon topics from that top 40 video and just researched them myself. But at the time, my channel was kind of doing pretty bad with art-related content, and I was trying to get into some other genres like gaming and stuff. But I thought, oh, I'm so interested in this Kablam episode 29 thing in lost media, why not make videos about that? So that did happen. But there's a chance that, I could have just said, I like researching this, but I don't want to do videos. I'm going to stick with the art. And in that case, I would still be doing lost media stuff. I just wouldn't be making videos about them. So again, to that extent, I still feel like the roots are in YouTube. But I will say that with the more time I spend searching for lost media, covering topics that are more in depth and more involved and, all kinds of stuff like that, I do think that there is a large part of me that is an enthusiast for lost media, because if that wasn't there, I would still be doing it. So I definitely think to that extent, it's not just a matter of, well, I'm a YouTuber that just makes videos about lost media, which isn't true, because I'm so active in the community and I love searching for stuff. So that is still a very big part of it. But I guess if you were to compare the two, which one are you more, I would see myself more as a YouTuber rather than someone who looks for lost media. I don't know if I would agree with that comment completely, but I agree with it to a pretty large extent. The reason why I don't agree with it completely is because I would argue that 90% disappointment is only in relation to actually like finding a piece of lost media or finding what you're looking for. And I think there's something to be missed there if that's the way that you view searching for things, because I have searched for many things over the span of my time in the lost media community, and there's so much stuff that I've just pieces of knowledge or interesting facts or things I didn't know about the cartoons I watched growing up that I never would have discovered if I didn't look into lost media, regardless about whether or not I found it. And I think to that extent, for me anyway, it's still cool being able to learn so much about the development and history of these franchises or shows or whatever piece of lost media you're looking for that you wouldn't have otherwise known about if you didn't look into the topic. Again, regardless if you found it or not. But with that said, I do think that when it comes to finding lost media in terms of searches, yes, the majority of searches, I would say, probably do end up either being disappointing because the media that's found... Well, I will say that anytime a piece of lost media is found, it's always cool. I always check it out. But I guess depending on how hyped you were for that piece to be found, might be a little disappointing or not. Like, I can think of many, I actually did a video on it, of disappointing pieces of lost media that didn't live up to the hype. There were quite a few topics I've covered before that I just didn't really feel like were that, cool, I guess. Just an example that I'm thinking of right now is the Pixar Maiden Point Richmond DVD. So Maiden Point Richmond was an employee-only DVD that was given out to Pixar people, I think it was in the early 2000s, and it contained a lot of their early work. Mostly like commercials and early test animations and stuff that's very hard to find. And I think it was quite a few months we tried to find a copy of it. We knew it existed. We knew Pixar employees had it, but a lot of them wouldn't want to like dump it because, well, it was made for Pixar people only. And it was really hard finding someone who would be willing to share it. We don't or I don't think we actually ended up finding anybody from Pixar that actually said they would help release it or anything. But we did find someone on the forums, of all places, who had a copy of the DVD that they got from their grandmother, who got it from like a thrift store or something. It was a crazy story. Like, you would never have guessed it. And I was really excited when that was found, because I thought, oh, like, we're going to see all these early tests and early commercials and like early stuff. And he got it online for us, and I went through it. And I'm not a huge Lost advertisement kind of guy, and I'm not really a big Pixar fan in general. I just thought that the content that was on it was going to be a little more involved. I wanted like early Toy Story tests and early like, movie tests and like rare stuff from, their well-known franchises. But a lot of it was kind of just, again, simple advertising, simple tests. And I kind of thought to myself, like, wow, we searched a long time for this, and I'm kind of disappointed by what's on it. This wasn't really what I was expecting. So to that extent, yes, you do find a lot of pieces of lost media, I guess, that maybe don't live up to your expectations. But the stuff that you do find that is really, really special, yeah, that kind of goes more along with what the quote was saying, where that stuff is like the whoa. For example, the Kappa Mikey pilot. When I found the Kappa Mikey pilot, that was kind of everything I was hoping it was going to be. And for that reason, it's one of my favorite searches of all time. Just Kappa Mikey was a kid show that was on Nickelodeon, and the MTV pilot was a more adult-oriented version. It wasn't like crazy adult, but there was some blood. I think there was a little like swearing and stuff, and it's just weird seeing a different side of like a Nicktoon cartoon that you know so well, right? And the characters looked different, and the animation was different. It was very rough. To me, I feel like that was really cool to see. The earlier iteration of a show you know so well that looks quite a bit different. Things like that are really cool to find, and I think maybe that's, again, more what the quote is saying, is like, when you find those really cool things, that's the really special stuff. But like I said before, though, I think even the stuff you don't find, or that is disappointing, there's still something special in there. I think the interest in lost media of the past couple of years, I want to say it's probably a combination of two different things. The first thing I would say is YouTube. And that's kind of like the YouTubers, the people that are covering lost media. I think just that kind of content is just more interesting to people now. It's something that a lot more people maybe didn't know about before, and as our channels get bigger, it's something that more eyes are going to be on. So I think the YouTube side of it is a really big part. But I think the other side of it, which is maybe bigger than YouTube, is just the what I like to call like the preservationist mindset. And I think years prior, before like lost media got as big as it did, I don't think a lot of people really even thought about archiving or preservation or content that used to be around that maybe some people have watched that they can't see anymore. I don't think people really thought about that. And that can be attributed to some of the big finds that have come out recently. Like the Wicked Witch is a really big example that I can think of right now. There was a Sesame Street episode, it was episode 847, where the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz visited Sesame Street. That was shown on TV way back in the day, in like the 60s. And it was so scary for the kids that watched it. They pulled it from rotation, and no one had ever seen it since its original broadcast. It aired once. So, that was found not too long ago, a few months ago, after having been known to be a really desired piece of lost media for years and years and years. And Sesame Street, Wizard of Oz, Wicked Witch, it was such a big thing, it hit mainstream news. I think even on Jimmy Fallon's show, I think I had seen something that he even talked about it being found. I mean, it hit mainstream news. That was a big find, and it's finds like that I think really kind of pull people into lost media. Like, I can't even imagine how many people found out that the Wicked Witch thing was found and then looked further into lost media or went to the lost media wiki. Like, I'm sure that happened. And, that's not even the first time that's happened. There have been big searches on the internet as well that gained a lot of attention over the years. There's been a handful of them. A Day with SpongeBob is one of the big ones that I was a part of for all the search, even before it was a big deal. I was there at the beginning. That one was a really big one that pulled people in. when Clockman was found. That pulled people in, and that wasn't even that long ago. That was only a few years ago that Clockman was finally found. And then before that was Cracks. That was another Sesame Street short. So these big finds are also pulling people into the community, and it's those big topics that I think really kind of help grow the community. Aside from just the general, I think, nostalgia of things too, which you kind of see in pop culture nowadays. Like Nickelodeon has had a lot of resurgence with its old properties, and I guess Cartoon Network to some extent. But like you go to the mall and you see a bunch of Nickelodeon T-shirts and all kinds of stuff now. So the 90s is cool again, and kind of like I've said before, I watched a lot of those shows growing up, so people are rediscovering those shows, and by association, those shows have lost media. So if you're interested in Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network and stuff like that, you're probably going to come across the lost media at some point, especially, again, with YouTube being so big now. It kind of all goes in a circle, and then that's how people discover lost media, and then that's how the community grows, and that's, at least from my experience, my interpretation of what I've been noticing in the growth of the community. I actually think it's really, really cool that the people who grew up watching my content are now making their own, or they're getting older and they're just telling me like, hey, I grew up watching your stuff and I'm still watching your stuff, like keep going. That's really cool to me. And I think that's one of the like nice kind of benefits of YouTube that I never even thought about when I like decided I was going to be a YouTuber. Like I didn't think about that. Like for me, when I grew up, I watched a lot of YouTubers. I had my favorites, and nowadays I either keep up with the old ones or I watch new ones, and a lot of those I feel very nostalgic for. And again, I grew up watching them, or I'm watching similar content, and it's really cool, right? To kind of be a part of a YouTuber's community for that long. And I always thought, right, when I was doing YouTube, or I never thought, rather, is a better way to put it. I never thought that I would be that person for someone else. I never thought people would say to me, I watched your content growing up and now I'm an adult. Like, I get that a lot when I do live streams, and even in my comment sections sometimes, people will say, like, yeah, I started watching your channel when I was in middle school, now I have a family, and I'm still watching. And it's like, whoa, it's like, I am that guy for people. Like, I am that, just as certain YouTubers were my old nostalgia stuff, I grew up watching them. Now I am that for other people. They are watching me growing up as they grow up. And that's really cool. I think that's like really cool that there's so much appreciation for the content creator itself and the content, but also that those kinds of viewers are still in the community and still supporting you. And I think that's something that I never even realized when I started doing YouTube. I never thought, oh, I'd have people, watching me for years and years and years. I guess it's something that like you don't really think about, right? Like you don't really go into YouTube like expecting to, get 1 million subscribers or to get so many views or whatever. I mean, I went into YouTube just to beat my friend at, our middle school game of uploading content, right? I never thought it would like amass to what it has. So I find that stuff really cool. That's really endearing to me. That people like my stuff, because like without any viewers, I wouldn't have any content to make. In fact, I've said many times before. Well, this gets into like my channel lore and stuff, but like there have been a lot of times in the past where I've thought about like just quitting altogether. I think it was mostly before I had even started doing lost media stuff. So it was mostly during the art era. But I had thought many times before about like, why am I even still doing YouTube? Like, who even cares about this stuff? Why am I still doing it? But, I kind of stuck with it, and it was something that I was passionate enough about to be like, nah, I can't just stop doing this. Like, I've amassed, 500 subscribers. I can't leave them hanging. Again, this was years ago. And I stuck with it, and like now here we are, and like that's really cool that I was able to keep it going, and that it didn't kind of fizzle out around the art era and stuff. So in a lot of ways as well, I think lost media did kind of save my channel, because if it hadn't been for lost media getting popular and my content with those early lost media videos doing really well, I don't even know if I would still be doing YouTube. Actually, I maybe would have quit at some point. So it's cool that it's still going all these years later. Doing video collabs is really fun. I think it's actually a really refreshing way to go about making videos because it acts as a nice break between your usual content. Like, a lot of my content nowadays is like 20-minute videos that cover several pieces of lost media that all relate to a theme, like from Cartoon Network or lost commercials or, whatever it is. And even just bringing in a narrator to narrate a few of those segments kind of gives a different, like, flavor to the video. Like, one of my more recent ones was with Sakura Stardust, who is in this documentary, and we covered international pieces of lost media. And that was really cool because she does a lot of like Japanese and content like that. So I had her narrate a couple segments. One was the Doraemon 73 Lost series. It was one of the earlier adaptations of the Doraemon anime series that has been lost for a long time. Very few content has resurfaced from it, but the search is still going. So I had her narrate that, and also a Filipino lost commercial called Encarnacion by Chavez, which was an ad for a flower shop that was apparently creepy. It was aired back in the late 90s and early 2000s. That's lost with no evidence of existence besides some claims. But I had her narrate those two segments because I thought they would fit well for her channel, or what she's known for. And just those narrations gave so much more to the video than I think would have if I didn't do that. And the comments were really, really hype on that video too. They were like really excited to see both of us collabing in one video. And I've collabed with other people before as well, like some other gaming related channels actually on gaming related content. It was kind of related to lost media though. I did one with She Says, who's known for Boundary Break. We collabed on a Totaka video on his Lost. So there's a if you play some Nintendo games that Kazumi Totaka, the composer, did the music for, he hides a melody in those games. And part of the fun is you're supposed to find out where the melody is hidden in the game. And there's a handful of games that the melody has not been found in. So I did a video with him talking about where that melody could be in the games. And that was a really fun one. And then I think one of my oldest ones was with Chugga Conroy, which that was actually like a bucket list thing. I grew up watching Chugga Conroy. My friends were really into Chugga Conroy, and I always kind of said to myself, like, what if I could do a collab with Chugga Conroy someday? Like, is my channel ever going to get big enough to do that? And it happened. So that was actually a big bucket list moment for me. We talked about kind of like obscure Animal Crossing trivia facts from the original GameCube game, which is my favorite game of all time. And it's not quite lost media, but it kind of is. There's a lot of obscure things that you might not know if you don't look that closely into the game. It's a pretty cool video. That one was another fun one too. And yeah, it just gives the videos more flavor, more I guess another level that you wouldn't be able to kind of achieve on your own to some extent. And I also think it's really fun editing audio from other people too. Like, just it gets annoying when you record like 30 or 40 minutes of audio and you're recording it and you just hear your voice over and over again. It's like, I mean, this guy's annoying. Shut up, LSuperSonicQ. But when you're editing someone else's audio or just listening to someone else's audio when you're putting in the visuals, it kind of refreshes the editing as well. I kind of like hearing other people's voices, in between mine. So I like collabs, yeah. They're a whole lot of fun. Okay, what piece of lost media would I love to be found the most? I have some obvious answers for this one, but I think I'm going to go with them because they're also my most wanted, so I'm gonna say it. I would say I have like two. One is probably Slamfest 99, which is an ongoing search currently. I've spent 2 years, well, more than 2 years, searching for it, along with the Lost Media Wiki Discord group. That was a live-streamed event from back in 1999 where Nintendo had costume mascot characters boxing inside of a boxing ring to promote the Smash Bros. N64 game. And no one has seen it since its original broadcast back in 1999. And it's one of those things that I've spent so much time looking for it that I need to find it. Like, I need to find it to feel complete. And for the amount of time that we've spent searching for that, we should have found it 3 times by now. but it's just a really, really hard piece of lost media to get a hold of. But I don't think that one's going to be particularly like good. Like it's going to be one of those. I'm sure the battle is goofy. I'm sure it's not going to be like this crazy, like realistic, exciting battle. It's probably going to be a goofy mascot battle from 1999. But I want to see that. I want to see not only the piece of media itself, because we have screenshots, but I want to see the video for it. And also, I think just the fact that I've spent so much time searching for it, I want it to be found. But I think my biggest piece of lost media that I want to be found is probably Meso Blues, which is the prototype short to Johnny Bravo. I've talked a lot about cartoons that I watched growing up and nostalgia and all that stuff. And Johnny Bravo was one of those shows I watched growing up on Cartoon Network, and I love Cartoon Network, lost media, and the channel in general. And we found a lot of lost pilots, from back in the early days of lost media to now. And Meso Blues is actually one of the oldest topics that I can think of from the old days of the community. And back in those days, it existed as like a couple screenshots and stuff. The most content we have from the short itself is actually from a Johnny Bravo DVD. There's a little documentary in it that talks about the making of Johnny Bravo, and in the documentary are clips of Meso Blues. They're very short, but that's really the most extensive look we've ever had at the short. And it's not really lost anymore because we know who has it. Van Partible, the creator of Johnny Bravo, has the short. He has confirmed it. It's on his computer and a backup hard drive. But he does not want to release it because he likes kind of keeping it mysterious. I think he said he shows it at some of his animation classes, and if you ever get to meet him in person, he said like, oh, it's a fun talking point, right? He kind of wants to keep it exclusive for those reasons. So to that extent, I can kind of understand it. But I guess to me though, I don't know when I would ever be in a area where I could ever have him show me. And I think it would just be cool to get online in general, just so that everyone can see it. Again, that's my preservationist mindset. And as a Cartoon Network fan, I really, really want to see that. It looks really old, really like just, you can see the evolution from Meso Blues to where Johnny Bravo is today, but I want to see all that for myself. And I've rewatched those clips so many times from the documentary. It's like the most I'm ever going to get. So hopefully someday I'll either meet him and he'll show me, or he'll upload it online. But I would say that for the fact that it's Cartoon Network and nostalgic and it just looks so cool, old school animation, that would be my most wanted piece of lost media. So the pieces of advice I would give to people that want to get into the community, whether it's joining the lost media community or making videos, I guess this would kind of be, I would say there's two different sections of this, but I have pretty consistent answers for both of them because I get asked this a lot on my streams and stuff too, so I kind of have an answer for this. So the best way to get into the lost media community, I would say there's probably two ways. One would be going to the Lost Media Wiki forums, making an account and browsing the forums, and two would be joining the Discord server. Now, in both of those cases, those are really active parts of the community, especially the Discord server. So if you want a more relaxed approach to kind of maybe find some topics you might be interested in, see what other people are talking about in the forums, scroll through some threads, I would suggest go to the forums for that, right? It's a little more relaxed. It's a little more, how can I help? What can I find? Maybe make your own thread too. And the forums are really active, all things considered. Some topics are a little more active than others, but you'll probably find something there you're interested in. And I've found a lot of cool stuff there too that I never would have found otherwise. So that's one way to get into kind of the community. But the second way, if you want a kind of quicker approach, would be the Discord server. So the Discord server is really, really active. There's all kinds of different channels. There's like Lost Media channel, Found Media channel. We have the On the Hunt channels for the specific searches for like Slamfest 99 and the Encarnacion Chavez commercial that I mentioned before. And that server is really active. I'm active in that server a lot, and it's for really good discussion. I don't want to say quick discussion, but there's always people there. You can always find something to talk about in the server. So I would say those are your best two places into if you want to get into the community and meet some of the people in it. Maybe, again, bring your own topics into the community. There are some people that I know have brought new topics to the community that I've kind of picked up on too, because they came with a mystery and I said, oh, that sounds interesting. I've always said that there will be people interested in like any topic that you can bring forward to the table, no matter how obscure or unconventional it might be. Because I've had a lot of comments and a lot of people say to me before that, well, they don't want to post about their topic in the forums because no one's going to help them search for it, or, it's not real lost media, so no one's going to, post in a thread about it. And I just think it comes down to people are interested in different things, right? Like not everyone is going to be interested in every topic. So if you go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to rally a big search team and we're going to get this found, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. But there will be some people who find your thing interesting. There will be some people who are going to help you out. And, in that way, as long as you have a little group of people who are willing to search for it, then you can make progress. It doesn't matter how big or small the search is. All that matters is that you have people interested in your topic as well. And even if you don't have people that are interested in your topic, I see this a lot on the forums too. Like there'll be one person that makes a thread with a topic. No one will post in it. They'll post a bump, maybe one or two bumps, and then they'll just, not post anymore in the thread. But I don't really even think that you should be limited by people that are searching with you. You can definitely search for your own topics by yourself, and maybe after you've gathered so much data or so many leads, you can actually present that in the forums or the Discord server, and people will be like, oh, that's really interesting. Look at all the stuff they found. I kind of want to join this search now. So it's all kind of dependent on the topic and, how much content's been found for it. But pretty much from my experience with people bringing forward new searches, there's always going to be someone interested in your search, and the forums and the Discord server are just where the most people are. So that would be where I suggest you go if you want to get into the community. With YouTube, though, it's a little bit of a different story. I will say that being a YouTuber is a lot harder nowadays. I think just with the way that YouTube is evolving and that it has evolved over the years. So it's a lot more competitive nowadays than it used to be. And, it's not easy making a channel and getting people to watch your content. But I've always kind of had a few different tips that I've given viewers and people that ask me in the past. What you can do to kind of start your channel if you want to be a lost media YouTuber and stuff. I think this will kind of help in kind of giving you some direction for how to begin your channel, because a lot of people don't know. So this is kind of from my experience what I think works and what you might want to try. So there are three things. The first thing is do your own research. And this is something that I talked about back, when I was making my first batch of lost media videos, or second batch. It was the earlier years. I wanted to be different and stand out. And by doing that, I had to do my own research, because I knew that people were going to watch my video if I brought something new to the table rather than just, rereading a Wiki article. So if you do your own research, that will really help you stand out, because you have content in your video that no one else will have. It's research you did. So that is probably the first step to helping you stand out. The second thing is have your own voice. And by that, I mean, you can take influence from my channel or Jorge's channel, which a lot of people have, or anybody else's channel that you enjoy watching. But taking influence is a little bit different than copying. So, for example, kind of with that whole, how people kind of, when they make lost media videos, a lot of them are like spooky in tone, and they're kind of made to be scary regardless of the topic. I mean, if you have a scary topic, sure, make a video a little ominous. But, if you're talking about a cartoon pilot and you're trying to make it scary, might not be the best option, because then you're just going to be seen as like a clone of another scary lost media channel, right? You kind of want to have your own voice and your own way of making your content, because you want to be your own channel. You don't want to be a clone of me. You don't want to be a clone of Jorge. You want to have your own channel. So inspiration is good, but don't take it so far that you become a clone. And maybe the most important tip of all is to pick a topic that you're genuinely interested in researching, because that'll just make the writing and the scripting process and the research itself way more fun than if you just pick something else that everyone else is choosing. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.